Welcome to CGTN Live. I'm Ding Yang with the CGTN Digital Desk, and now I'm standing in Beijing, and this is actually CGTN Digital Desk's office. So that's the reason that I need to lower my Okay, that must have added a little bit of saturated mood to today's live stream. Well, you must have already guessed today is all about the New Year, but the celebration is not here yet. It is still 24 hours, more than 24 hours away. Oh, thank you, man. So today's live stream, we are going to talk about the biggest event, the biggest news stories that CGTN has covered over 2018, because those stories, they're very likely to continue to affect our lives in many years to come. And because this is a year-end project and a year-end show, so I'm definitely not going to do it alone. I'm going to do it with my colleagues. And during my section, I'm going to talk about the politics and the technology, all those big events and the affairs and the stories that affect our life every day during the passing year. Ooh. Well, that's a different experience from my previous lives. And after my session, my colleague Abigail will take over and take you through the biggest stories that we covered about culture and the most extraordinary experience that the reporters have during their travels, their trips around China and across the world. And those reporters actually brought back extraordinary stories about what actually had taken place in China and the rest of the world in 2018. But that is not the most extraordinary thing about tonight's show. And halfway through it, we are going to cross the boundary between television and social media, which means we are going to be in live dialogue with my colleague from the TV channel, from CGTN channel in the studio. We are going to talk about together the most interesting social news that had happened in China in 2018, and the whole thing about the television show is also going to be live online as well. So you may want to stay tuned closely to us tonight, because we have a lot to share. And if you also have things to share, if you also have things that you want to tell us, don't hesitate. Leave your comments on all social media accounts of CGTN. Okay. So now I'm going to move on to our first subject. It's going to be about politics. We all know that over the past year, China and the U.S. relation has dominated the global headlines. So I'm going to ask Zhou Jingnan, who is our political correspondent. So tell us a little bit about the recent development of China-U.S. relations. What is the latest development and where it goes?
Well, I think concerning the China-U.S. relationship, the biggest story to watch this year is definitely the trade war or the trade dispute between the two. And it started in March this year when the U.S. filed a WTO case against China for its trade practices under the so-called Section 301 of its Trade Act. And then after that, several rounds of threats of tariff imposition. And then in July, the U.S. Officially slapped the first batch of China-specific tariffs on China. And then China was forced to respond, to take responsive tariffs and slapped responsive tariffs on the U.S. And then it sort of started. And of course, both sides were engaged in several rounds of trade talks, but nothing solid was resulted from that. But the biggest breakthrough came recently during the G20 summit, when President Xi Jinping met with his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump in a working dinner, actually. And the two leaders reached a very significant consensus to put the current trade war on hold and give it a 90-day negotiation period, and during which time both sides promised to stop increasing the current tariffs or adding new tariffs on each other, and they will work toward a larger deal, a larger trade deal that is supposedly or hopefully going to please both sides. So that is basically the recap of the trade war. And the latest news is that the two leaders just held a conversation over the phone yesterday evening, actually, and reaffirming their commitment to implementing all those significant consensus reached during the G20 summit.
Does that mean that we can now all just sit idly and relax?
Well, I wouldn't suggest we do that because this is a very complicated issue, and the trade issue, as you can see, is more complicated than China simply buying more products from the U.S. because, yes, China has agreed to buy more agricultural or energy products from the U.S., but as the spokesperson for China's Commerce Ministry, Gao Feng, said, the two sides will also start negotiations on a series of issues, including intellectual property protection, trade, technology cooperation, and market access. So all of these issues require a much longer-term planning to address. So I would say let's not keep our hopes too high at this point, and we'll see what preliminary results can be generated from those 90-day negotiations, and we'll see where we can go from there.
A lot of people, a lot of experts actually have talked to this idea, this idea actually there's a flight everywhere, that there's going to be some sort of new Cold War between the two largest economies in the world. Do you think that is a scenario?
Well, on this point, I agree with Chinese ambassador to the U.S., Cui Tiankai, that a Cold War is not going to happen in the near future, simply because they will not serve the interests of both of people from both countries. And also, remember, it's not the 1950s or the 1960s anymore when the U.S. and the Soviet Union engaged in a Cold War, because back then, the two literally had no trade or social or economic contact. But look at the China-U.S. U.S. relationship nowadays. The two shared $500 billion U.S. dollars two-way trade, and 350,000 Chinese students and 3 million tourists visit the U.S. annually. So you can see the two powers are already too interconnected, too interdependent on each other to afford to go into a Cold War against each other.
Thank you, Jingnan. Glad to know that in this cold winter Beijing day, I can leave you with a bit of warmth in heart. Thank you, and Happy New Year to you.
You too.
Thank you, and that's about politics. And next time we're going to move on to talk about the technology because, well, now this is already the time that we cannot even for one day leave tech. And allow me to introduce Happy New Year to you, Mei Ping. This is from Tech and Science Desk and Mei Ping, and she's been traveling a lot in China in close contact with the cutting-edge technology. So tell us, what is the most fascinating thing you've seen?
Okay, firstly, I think 2018 has been a really eventful year for China's space industry. So I want to talk about this, a little bit of this. And for example, the Beidou navigation satellite system, which is a couple days ago just announced to provide global service to the whole world, including positioning, navigation, timing services, which made it the fourth in the world which can provide this kind of services to the whole globe. The others are GPS from the United States. We're really familiar with that. And also GLONASS of Russia. And another one is Galileo of the European Union. And there were actually 19 Beidou 3 satellites sent into the space. So it's very intensive. And another big news in the space is the recent launch of the Chang'e lunar probe.
Recently they're going to launch it in the moon, right?
Yeah, it's going to land sometimes around next Thursday. So our team is actually preparing to cover the landing. It's a grand landing because it's human beings' first time to step to the far side of the moon. Because of the tidal locking phenomenon, so we from Earth can never see the other side of the moon. So yeah, let's wait for it to unveil.
Glad to know that with all those amazing, beautiful technologies around in the space, that we will never get lost again on the roads.
Yeah, of course.
So what is the most personal, fascinating experience that you have in 2018? Can you show us something?
Yeah, for example, I went to a World Robot Conference this year in August in Beijing, and I think that's fascinating because I saw a lot of futuristic technology there. I actually have a video I want to show you guys.
Great.
It's a highlight video from the event.
Yeah, maybe you can zoom in a little bit just to have a look at it. So it's about beautiful robots, presumably.
So some of the robots you have seen?
So not exactly the robots I would imagine, because it doesn't have this one has an arm. Okay.
See?
Is that a fight?
Yeah, I'll explain more about this later.
Oh, it's blah. Okay, okay.
This is really cool, right?
Iron Man?
Yeah, kind of, but not that fancy.
Definitely, yeah. They can provide some additional force for you.
Is that real fish?
No, of course. And this part is really interesting. If you cannot hear, maybe you can see the subtitles.
Electric Rail, there's an episode of this. What is CES Asia?
It's another really big event, tech event.
Okay, maybe we'll mute a bit because I have my last question for you before I left. Because with so many robots you've seen, you're maybe slightly worried about it. Maybe one day human beings going to be taken over by robots. Are you worried about that?
You're talking about artificial intelligence, actually.
Yeah.
And I think it's too early for us to discuss this question because I think AI is still at a really early stage of its development. So I don't think we need to worry about it now. And I think human beings can control those robots, of course.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mei-Ping, and Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Glad to share.
Glad that I can leave my second stop with another slice of warmth that human being is going to live a bit longer than I first imagined. So now I'm going to wrap up my session here, but don't go away from your mobile phone, from your laptop, because my colleague Abigail is going to take over to bring you more fascinating stories from CGTN Digital's editors. Abigail, over to you.
Well, thanks, Dane. Hi, I'm Yang Xinlong, and Happy New Year. Speaking of travel and culture, I went to a bunch of places to covering many different events. But to give you a better idea, I am now joined by our managing editor from the travel section, Serena Dong. Hi, Serena.
Hi, how are you?
Well, good. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, so if you have to pick one word, just one, to describe all the big stories that travel section have covered in 2018, what would that be?
You mean keywords for 2018? Well, I would definitely choose visa-free.
Okay.
Because it has been a good year for us. 6 new countries have granted visa-free access to Chinese tourists, including the UAE, Belarus, and Myanmar. So by the end of this year, well, up to today, there are 74 countries who have opened their doors to Chinese tourists, meaning we no longer have to go through all the lengthy entry procedures.
Well, so did you go to any?
Oh yes, included one of the 12 mutual exemption agreements with China, such as Mauritius. I went to Mauritius
Mauritius.
Yes, 2 years ago. It is truly a paradise.
Okay, so tell us more. How special is it?
Yeah, well, Mark Twain once said, heaven was copied after Mauritius.
Wow.
So besides the sapphire blue water and long white beaches, you will get a stunning view of the Indian Ocean. Okay. So I would definitely recommend you and anyone who is watching our live hit to put that on your radar and save it for your next trip.
Well, actually, my New Year resolution for 2019 is to travel more, so I'll definitely put Mauritius on my destination list. Speaking of that, what is your New Year resolution?
I would say pick up a new language.
Which language?
Spanish, maybe.
Spanish?
Yes.
Oh, that's very common.
Yeah, it is.
And I heard you've been busy working on an exciting project, and it will soon be launched in 2019. Tell us about it.
Yeah, we will premiere our travel show, 72 Hours in China.
72 hours in China, wow. But why 72? What does it mean?
Well, the idea came from this, policy which has been rolling out since 2013. It offers a 72-hour visa-free transit for passport holders from 53 countries, including the United States and France. They can, come and visit 15 cities in China, including metropolises like Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou, and also some second-tier but tourist-friendly cities like Chongqing and Xi'an.
Okay, that's exciting. But for now, a quick question to you.
Yes.
So can you recommend one place to our audience to visit and give us 3 reasons why you choose that place?
Well, off the top of my head, I would say Chongqing.
Chongqing.
Yeah, 3 keywords: architectural marvels, sleepless, and hot food.
Okay. So thank you so much, Serena. I'm looking forward to that travel show, 72 Hours in China.
Thank
and
you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
Well, now here is our wonderful multimedia journalist. If you watch our live streamings a lot, you probably know her, Li Jingjing.
Hi,
hello.
Abigail.
So tell us about your 2018. I know you went to a lot of places. You covered many major events.
2018 for me is pretty fruitful, I would say, because I witnessed major political events in China, for example, the 2 sessions and the all economic forums, and also travel from the very south to very north, very east to very west of China. So it's been really, really fruitful, I'd say.
Okay, so same question as I asked Serena. to pick up one word to describe your 2018, what is that word?
Wow, one word. I think I would choose adventurous.
Adventurous.
Yeah.
I know you are an adventurous person. For the last month, you went scuba diving, you went skydiving, but what else?
Of course, I'm a very outdoor person, so that word describes my personal life. But I think for 2018, also some of my professional life, because for example, we did so many things with the CGTN team, but in Guangdong province, we met the super typhoon Mangkhut, which is quite a challenge for the CGTN team.
Yeah, I remember that video. You were reporting and also fighting in the fierce wind. Yeah, but you did a brilliant job. We'll get back to you later because I can see that Dean is already standing by for a TV live cross, and that is a special show, year-end show for the program China 24. So this is what our daily work looks like. So we are working in this newsroom, we monitor the breaking news, and we write stories, and we edit videos. And now we are always prepared to show you what is happening here. And now we're going to introduce the big stories that our department, CGTN Digital, covered in 2018. And we'll also be streaming that part of the show on our social media platforms. So please stay tuned, and we'll have more after that.
CGTN's digital live. They're also doing their shows to reflect on some of the key political and tech events in 2018. And after a short break, we will go live to them. Then they will be giving us a recap of most debated social stories of the year. Well, we will begin this segment with a look back at a story that caused public panic. One of the nation's leading vaccine makers, Changsheng, was found to have manufactured substandard vaccines and falsified its production records. And China's legislature is reviewing a draft law on vaccine management. Xu Mengqi recaps the scandal and its fallout.
There are vaccines for kids. This is very, very infuriating.
Rabies are often fatal, and people have high expectations for vaccines that treat it. So when news broke on July the 15th that Changsheng, China's second largest rabies vaccine manufacturer, faked its production records, it quickly caught public attention. And only 4 days later, the company was fined for another batch of substandard vaccines for infants and young children.
If anything ever were to happen to our child, how would we go on?
Even though the mothers shied away from the camera,
they did not hide their anger. There was public outcry.
Because vaccines prevent rather than treat diseases, safety has to be the #1 consideration. And China's historically been fantastic at having excellent coverage. And my concern is if there's a further erosion of public trust and coverage decreases, that's going to have a significant public health impact.
After the scandal broke, Changchun was fined $1.3 billion, 16 times its net profit in 2017. The company's Good Manufacturing Practice certificate was revoked and its executives arrested. Now China's top legislature is deliberating a draft law on vaccine management, which specifies severe punishment for future violators. This is not the first time China's had a major vaccine scandal. In fact, in the past decade, we've had a few. But this is the first time that China is making a separate law about vaccine management. Do you think that will help prevent future scandals?
So I think the legislation is certainly important and is to be welcomed. But if we look at historically industrialized nations such as in the West, legislation has always worked in collaboration with other factors. Most pharmaceutical companies have got decades-long heritage in making medicines for the public, and therefore they've learned to practice self-discipline in putting public safety first rather than motivated by profits.
The draft legislation makes it clear that vaccinations are for the good of the public, and there will be stricter regulations regarding licensing, production, and even distribution and circulation. For companies in the vaccine industry, this could be a game changer. But for the general public, this might be what they need to restore their trust in vaccinations. Xu Mengqi, CGTN, Beijing.
And now, let's go to my colleagues at CGTN Digital. They have a recap of the most debated social stories in 2018. Hi there, Yang Di.
Hi, Zhou Yue. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
Well, I must say that that's two great picks about, sorry, Happy New Year, Happy New Year. Yeah, I can hear you, okay? About the two picks of the stories about that is the most trending on Chinese social media, the vaccination stories, I think is definitely the most important thing that are going to stay with the Chinese people in our memory for a very, very fairly long time in the future. And I must say that the criteria with which we at CGTN's social media desk is reviewing all those social stories is a little bit hard because social news, the definition is a bit vague. So we decided to review those stories that have been staying in the social media discourse for the longest in 2018, and the one that actually directly in relation to China's reform in making the most effort to make people live better of their life. And the story about vaccination, the problematic vaccination that angered and stirred Chinese netizens is definitely on top of this list. So about that story today, I invited a page editor, Amber B, who is also the Chinese Need Affair editor, who is going to let us know more about the data and the reaction from Chinese netizens online. So Amber, Happy New Year to you first, and what have you got for us about this story?
Yes, the rabies vaccine issue brought out a lot of discussion on the internet, and we did receive a lot of comments from our social media platforms like Twitter, WeChat, Weibo, and Facebook. Here I got a mom. She said like she's in panic when she heard about the news, and she had a baby do the body check right after the scandal. Though the baby is luckily healthy now, but she's still worried about where to find a safe vaccine in the market. Some of the followers from Twitter and Facebook said they see Chinese government's determination to fight against this issue as the measurement after the scandal was really resolute and determined. And also some of the followers of our social media platforms said they want to keep trusting on the quality of the vaccine as they believe the improvement will be made and they will keep the market more stable and reliable. When we talk about the improvement of the Chinese public health care, I'd like to mention another very important step in cutting tariff of the 28 kind of anti-cancer drugs from other countries. And this do bring a lot of benefits to our general public in China. And our netizens believe they will benefited more from these policies in the new year. That's all from our social media platforms.
Yeah, thank you, Amber,
Thank you,
and Happy New Year again.
Happy New Year.
And yeah, that is the issue. The issue with health, with the fundamental thing about people's life, I think always concerns people the most, because without health, without that, everything else would be lost. And that's the reason why the other story we're going to talk about that are very, very kind of huge on China's social media is also about health issues, and it's about the genetic modified baby, and you cannot underestimate how significant that story toward the end of 2018. But talking about that, I can introduce my colleague Abigail, standing with Science and Tech editor. Over to you.
Well, thanks, Dean. Well, parents are worrying about their children's health. One scientist in China is trying to protect the babies permanently from the HIV virus, and he was recently nominated by the British journal Nature as one of its top 10 people who mattered in science in 2018. But the result of his attempt could be wrong. Now, I am joined by our text and science section editor Guo Meiping, who covered this story. So, Meiping, can you tell us a little bit about this gene editing story?
Sure. So on November 26, a Chinese scientist named He Jiankui claimed that he had created the world's first genetically edited babies, twin girls. And according to him, the babies are immunized from being infected by the HIV virus.
Yeah, I remember that night. It was also you and me, and we made this special page for this topic because it went viral all of a sudden.
Exactly.
Do you remember how many articles we posted?
We posted about 20 articles in just 4 days. I have this page over here.
Oh, that's the page.
This is the page we created. See, this is the articles we have. And this topic has also triggered heated discussions on social media platforms like Weibo and WeChat.
Yeah. So among all those comments, what are the most asked questions by Chinese netizens?
Well, there's, of course, debate around whether genetic engineering is ethical, and people are also asking if the research can really prevent the babies from catching HIV, because we cannot try to infect them, since it's obviously unethical to do so. So how can we be certain they're immune?
Yeah. So are there any rules in China on this type of research?
Yes, there's a document published by the Chinese government in 2003, which says that scientists are allowed to conduct genetic editing on human embryos only for research purposes. But in vitro breeding cannot be more than 14 days from the date of fertilization or nucleus transplant. So if He Jiankui's claim is true, it would seem that he had violated certain laws of China because the twin girls have already been born.
Yeah, so, okay, thank you so much, Meiping. I'm not going to take up too much of your time. Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So those are the two most debated stories in China online in 2018.
So can I ask you, Abigail, what is the most memorable story that you can remember from the passing year?
Social media?
Yep.
I can't think of one right now. Do you have one?
Well, actually, that is I think that's some issue that I always have with social media stories. Like I said at the beginning of this conversation with Zoe, that the social stories sometimes are very, very hard to define.
Yeah.
Some stories, when you read afterwards, you just think it's preposterous, but the serious issue that kind of hide behind them will only come up and afterwards. Even at an occasion like this, when we really kind of think over them all, we go through them all, we can find the point of the covering social stories.
Right, so that's for 2018, and we'll have more stories in 2019. And that's all from CGTN Digital. Back to you, Zoe.
Well, thank you so much for Digital's reporting on what is being viral on social media. Thank you. As 2018 draws to a close, smartphones continue to dethrone televisions as kings of media, and tastes in entertainment.
Okay. Hi. Hello again. So we just finished our live cross for TV, and let's keep up our discussion. So you mentioned that your experience was typhoon Mankat. Are there any other stories, memorable stories you did in 2018?
Wow, there are so many. Of course, the super typhoon Mankat is a really big thing that most memorable this year, because CGTN team made a really great effort over there because we were there meant to do the Belt and Road Initiative stories. But in the end, we encountered the landfall of Super Typhoon Mangkhut, which is, wow, what's happening? So we decided to, of course, we definitely finish our Belt and Road stories, and then we continue to do the typhoon stories, so which is pretty amazing. Everyone is just holding the trees, covering all the aftermath, everything. But also, of course, witnessing big political events and all these things are very touching for me. But it's always the true stories from the grassroots people.
The grassroots people.
Yeah, touch me the most. For example, this year I went to the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region.
And I remember you went there more than once, right?
Yeah, I've been there so many times over like in my career as a journalist. But every time I see some new things, it's just quite amazing. For example, this year I interviewed several very talented Xinjiang Uyghur rappers 2 years ago, and this year they made their name nationwide. They become nationwide famous rappers through the show.
Stars.
Yeah,
because of you.
I won't say that, but I'm quite proud of my stance as a journalist. But like, I'm so happy to see them finally became like nationwide famous rappers. They're so talented, singing rap songs in their Uyghur language, in Mandarin, in English. And also I witnessed, because I went to the area called Aksu. It used to be a Gobi Desert, but this year the local people spent 3 decades transforming the desert into an oasis. They plant apples, plant trees, and by selling apples through the e-commerce platforms, they change their life from a very poor condition into a well-off condition, and they're having so happy life. So
that's just impressive.
Very impressive. That's why I would say the true stories from the grassroots people always touch me the most. That's the most powerful tool.
Yeah, that's why I love my job. I mean, our job being journalists too, because we get to know different people, different stories in different places. So, for now, what is your New Year resolution?
Well, you see, as a journalist, I'm always so busy, so concentrated on my job, so I don't really have time to find a boyfriend. So maybe in 2019, I hope I can finally have a boyfriend.
Okay, so keep that in mind. All single boys watching, CGTN reporter is looking for a boyfriend. So leave comments on all of our social media platforms if you want to get her contact information. Well, Happy New Year. Thank you. I hope your dream will come true. Okay, let's go talk to Dean.
Well, maybe I'm not in the camera yet, but I already heard what Dean just said. Since when we started doing Take Me Out?
That online dating show.
Okay, so now please allow me to introduce one of CGTN Digital Desk's international editor, Nadim Diab here. And the reason that I asked Nadim to join us, maybe you can have a seat, Abigail.
It's fine.
Yeah, we've been working around. Is that not just to talk about Nadim's New Year resolution, but actually I'd like to do a little bit not different kind of advertisement for the three of us, because I think in a month's time there's going to be the Chinese New Year, and
Chinese New Year.
Yeah, CGTN will always present you a wonderful show in the backstage. Well, maybe not exclusively, maybe not just limited to the backstage, but I will stop there. So the three of us will bring you something extraordinary that you don't want to miss about the Chinese Spring Festival. So that is the end of
February
4th.
February 4th.
Okay, so
the New Year Eve is
really
February 4th.
make us look very, very bad. We need to get the time right. But now let's move on to your New Year resolution. Okay. Hey man, so what?
Oh wow, too many mics.
I will hold mine. So what you want the most, or the badly for the coming year?
Well, I know that it's one day before the end of 2018, and right now it's all about New Year's resolutions. But shocker, I don't have any. Based on previous years, I know that I'm not going to stick with whatever I choose for myself, so why even bother? So this year, my resolution is not to have any New Year's resolution.
That's cheating. So that
it's not really cheating.
So that you won't feel guilty at the end of the year.
Oh, I feel guilty every day. Looking at my decisions, I feel guilty every single day. So.
Okay, so Abigail, allow me to ask you, do you have any New Year resolution?
Well, my New Year resolution for 2019 probably will be, I hope I could stop spending money on all the annual membership cards like gym and yoga, because I will never go.
I vouch for that. I saw her once on the street going to yoga class.
Yeah, probably just that one.
Stop spending money. Do you mean that you're going to refrain from buying a new membership, or actually you want to just stop going to the gym?
No, I stopped buying because I bought membership card for gym and for yoga for 2018 and also for 2017.
You have separate membership cards for yoga and gym.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now I can see the point of that. That's
Yeah,
your
but I will
solution.
never go. They didn't work. So yeah.
But you
No.
look fabulous. I think
Well, thank
somehow
you.
you got a secret to keep it. Yeah.
Thank you. So
Okay.
what about you?
Ooh, actually, we've been over the past year. We've been covering news of all sorts, and we've been a lot of places, and we've written and filmed quite a lot of stories. Some of them very very uplifting, but others a little bit depressing. And sometimes when you read this, do feel this emotional up and downs. So I guess I won't plan that far ahead. So
Okay.
maybe I will find a lot of people agreeing with me on this. Let me just plan for the next 3 days.
So basically, you're saying that you and I are in the same boat.
No,
and
no,
we
no,
don't
no.
You don't
any
have any.
resolution.
No, no, no,
This is-
no,
You're
no,
just
no.
trying to make it fan.
No, that's cheating. That is cheating.
I think I will jump from that boat. I mean, I will plan my New Year's resolution for the next 3 days. But if I can have a break at all, maybe I will kind of minimize the intake of news
Okay.
and resume my normal pattern after I come back in a in a brand new year.
Okay.
So maybe
Fair
the camera can pick a little bit up the noise around in the surrounding.
Yeah.
And because we are the only people, us three are the only people who can see what is going on out of the frame.
Well,
Yeah.
we have
well, so
the-
behind the camera,
Okay, so
we have a
I
bunch of people.
Why don't we let the camera turn?
well,
Yeah.
I will give Abigail the control
Okay.
now. So let's count down.
Yeah.
This is not a countdown to a new year, but it's a countdown to the celebration from CGTN from
Yeah, to the warmest wishes for you from the CGTN digital crew.
3,
2,
2, 1.
1.
My friends.
Happy New Year!
Congratulations.